We are here for session 1 of the Business Development Clinic. And this is going to be a little bit of a different take on business development and staying on track than you will have seen from other sources. And I'm on here with Stephanie. She's going to be jumping in and out of the presentation with me today. And this 3-part series, this is a different take on it. One of the things that we see that is a little disconcerting out there on social media and otherwise is an oversimplification about the real estate business. It's an oversimplification that has to do with business development. It has to do with systems. And part of our peers in the coaching business have been guilty of this as well. The one-size-fits-all, the lack of customization. And there's no better example of this, before we jump into this, than the simplification around, I'm going to do this many transactions, I'm going to focus on this, I'm going to focus on marketing and technology investments, and then I'm going to tie it all together with the proverbial shiny object, my universal selling proposition. Right? And Stephanie's laughing because we look at this, and if it wasn't so irresponsible, funny. So let's jump into the meat of this. Stephanie, do you want to add anything to that? Other than the universal selling proposition is probably, back if you read old stories about snake oil salesmen and some of the stuff they used to hawk, that's just today's version of it, is the people who sell technology like this CRM or this action plan, or these are my magic letters that you can attach to your Infusionsoft. And the snake oil salesperson, people of today, are now on technology is going to replace everything that you're going to do, and everything will be wonderful, and it's so easy that you should just not even worry about doing these tasks anymore. And the fundamentals are a lost art. The easy part of this business is it's much simpler than people think it is. The hard part is avoiding all the snake oil salespeople, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a particular gentleman we follow as far as where we get our news from, and he always says, you're smart enough. You know, you guys, for those of you here now and those of you joining us later, you're smart enough, hopefully, if you got into real estate and you got into a business of selling homes and servicing clients and helping people achieve their dreams. What a bunch of crap. My point is that you're smart enough to know, especially if you're hanging out with us and you're in our mastery coaching program, that the model of the business and how we succeeded in real estate and how we teach you how to succeed in real estate is so simple. It's retarded, isn't it, Kevin? It's really simple.
Absolutely. Well, getting off track is easy. And one of the things that we do that's different is we talk about customization and a realization, mostly because we used to buy into this crap as well. We were involved with a big franchise. We sat there in all those conferences and all those trainings, and we'd come back with our notes, and we would be all excited about somebody on a panel or somebody that said, okay, this is something that you want to do from a business planning standpoint, or this is some strategy you want to use, or do this. And one of the reasons we're so passionate about this is at some point in time, and it didn't take us very long, fortunately, we realized that all of our challenges, all of our mistakes were related to all of this nonsense around shiny objects. And it became so stupid simple that all of the, oh, I want to go shadow, him or her, and I'm going to learn all this great stuff. Yeah, you're going to learn how to get off track and not make any money, but you're going to do it gloriously with all sorts of fanfare, and you might be able to get put up on stage. And what we realized was it's not very sexy to base things on the fundamentals, but the reward, as we're going to talk about in business planning, is you don't have to work hundreds of hours a week. You don't have to do all these things. And I want to make this point. One of the reasons you don't have to do that is you're not a heavy consumer of the shiny objects, the technology, and the nonsense that requires a load of people, which is overhead that you have to feed, right? You're not trying to ultimately be Target or General Motors or some big company like Dell Computers. And that's the nonsense that they espouse, right? These people that are all into all these marketing-based strategies, for you to do this, and we had an agent in Texas that did this. He was up on stage for one of the franchises. He was touted as the #1 guy and had like 29 buyer agents. He was spending $100,000 a month on marketing. His load to just break even was ridiculous, and his profit was negligible. I worked for a team that had 500 or 600 transactions a year. They imploded under the load when the market shifted. So many of the mistakes that we observed, and especially those that we actually committed ourselves, sometimes several times, are why we're so passionate about this. It's not that we hate shiny objects and we hate technology. I come from Silicon Valley. I'm a technology guy. But do that on your own time as a hobby. Don't invest in it just to invest in things. And don't listen to the snake oil salespeople that espouse all this ridiculous stuff. So, Stephanie, let's run through this, and I want you to jump in on some of these. The 12 steps to success. We're going to run through these fairly quick. Identify your sources of business. Start with 4 or 5 at most. I mean, usually 3 or 4 is plenty for most people. And these are the solid foundation. This is right in line with what we're saying about not getting off track. This is another area where you see the snake oil salesperson, oh, here's a great source of business, do this. And you have people that are so dysfunctional, they're chasing things. And in the course of a year, they don't just start with 4 or 5. They've tried 4 or 5 every month, and they have nothing going consistently. It's okay to make course corrections and adjustments, but the foundation comes from with no more than 4 or 5, doesn't it, Stephanie? Yeah. All right, so let's talk about ROI, or return on investment, from a source. You don't just pick something because it's sexy, because it works, and just assume that you need to continue doing it and doing more of it. You need to understand what your numbers are and your return on investment for each source. You need to understand this so that you can decide, do I want more of this? Should I go deeper on this? Am I getting enough return that I can hit my goals? And this is another area where people are off track. I've talked about this in Listing Mastery. There is a game that's played out there, and this is the second cousin to the snake oil salespeople. I can game the system and become a New York Times best-selling author. And I can pitch my system, and I might even offer coaching and training and other things. Because they've gamed the system, nobody ever asks the question, can I make a return on the investment in following this? Can I do this strategy? Is this source of business duplicatable, replicatable, and is it even profitable? And the irresponsible brands and franchises love this stuff. They love to put these people up on stage, and nobody ever asks the question, has anybody ever done it in another market? Is this appropriate for my market? What markets is this appropriate in? So what we spend all our time in with clients, especially people that we coach, is understanding, are you susceptible to, do you find yourself attracted to the shiny objects that are hawked by these snake oil salespeople? Ask better questions, you get better results. And part of it is understanding the source and the return on investment that is appropriate for you and your market. And it could change over time. So what is the marketing technique for lead generation and lead follow-through to target each of those selected areas? In other words, does it match your market? Is it appropriate for you? Is there enough business in that area? And then what is the strategy for lead generation and lead follow-through that you're going to apply? All things are not static. It could change over time. It could be inappropriate. The worst thing is either based on seasonality or a combination of that and market conditions, that you just keep doing the same thing and refuse to acknowledge the fact that even though it worked before, it may not be working now. Now, the good news is it could only be seasonality, and you need to adjust it because there's more opportunities that will come at a different time of the year. The bad news may be that area, that source of business may have dried up. This is another area that is the ridiculous nature of one-size-fits-all coaching, training, and shiny objects. If it's working for an agent in a market that's very different than yours, or that agent's been doing it for decades, it's not going to work for you necessarily. So understanding how you're going to target it and do this is a big part of this. So learning and internalizing scripts, questions, customizing it for your market, the time of year, seasonality, for each of these target markets. In other words, you've got to have a strategy. Not only you know how you're going to lead generate and lead follow through, but you have to understand how you're going to target it from the standpoint of scripts and targeting for those areas. You can't say the same thing to every source of business. Your past clients, your advocates in your sphere are different than expired, withdrawn, and canceled, different than for sale by owners. And not understanding how you're going to target them and adjusting and focusing your training on it. A big part of it as well is you have to feel confident enough and be willing to put the effort into it to go after an area. We see a lot of agents that will pick a target, for sale by owners, and they run off the rails for a couple of reasons. One may be there's not enough of that business in their market, or it's not a good fit for them from a behavioral style. They're not going to want to do what they need to do to succeed. We've got a whole training series on for sale by owners, and if you've been in listing mastery and you've watched that 3-part series, if you can't say with 100% conviction, I've looked at my market, I know there's enough opportunities, I'm willing to do what I need to do to succeed, and go do the activities, either based on your behavioral style or the fact that you're just unwilling to do that, that can't be a good source for you. The hypotheticals of, I'm going to target these 3 or 4 areas without matching it up to you, your market, and the strategies is where most people run off, because it's just hypothetical, right? I'm going to do 50 transactions. I'm going to get them from these 3 or 4 sources. And nobody ever vets it against them, their market, and appropriateness. One of the reasons that people, and we were guilty of this, don't go after the non-sexy past clients, advocates, and sphere, and we did it inadvertently that we actually got a fair amount of business from it, but certainly wasn't because we executed very well on it, is it's not sexy. As I mentioned earlier in this call, we were victims, mostly because of the franchise system we were following and how much nonsense they pushed out, that we ignored, and despite that we got a fair amount of business from it, our past clients, our sphere, and advocates. And I think it's because it's not a shiny object. You don't see a lot of people talking about it. Or they're 100% on the opposite side of it, and they're only going to get business from that. And Stephanie will remember this story. There was an agent and his wife who absolutely hated us because they were the big dogs in the market center. They were a by referral only past client business. And when we started doing significantly more business than them, they didn't like it. And it's the predictability of the business. In other words, they never went beyond, I'm tying this into our list here, their source of business was linear, right? It was all past clients, advocates. It wasn't appropriate for the market because most of the other business was from other sources.